Thank you everybody for joining us this evening. It's the Silver Wattle Quaker Centre's first Zoom taster session, and our session is about the course coming up at the end of the month, which is the Thriving in Our Times, a survival guide for Earth residents. So we have a wonderful group of people joining us this evening. And some people have put in the chat what country that you live on, First Nations countries, because country is alive underneath our feet and underneath our buildings and underneath our roads and all the things we've done to change country. And I'd like to acknowledge with the words that we have at our Carryong Eco Garden that were given to us by an Aboriginal elder, David Pross. And we say that we acknowledge with respect the Indigenous custodians of this land, and these waters and the sky. And we work with their spirits caring for Mother Earth. And I interpret that the spirits is not just the ancestors, but it's also the spirit of Aboriginal people living with us today and caring for country all around us. And I'd love to invite Catherine just to explain the role that she's having with us this evening of Elder, and then I'll introduce Helen Gould and Rowe Morrow.
Thanks, Lisa. So I'm here. Well, it seems to me that the role of elder in a gathering like this is really the same as being an elder in a course. So I see the role as being an accompanying elder to support the course leaders and presenters, and also the participants, to hold us all prayerfully so that we can be as faithful as possible to those who are leading to follow the promptings of the Spirit in what they bring to the group, and to the participants that they may be trusting and open to the Spirit as to what may come. And I have to say that I was hoping and intending to be the elder in person for the course, but I'm not able to do that this year. But so what I'll be doing is saying, this is what elders do in general. I'm curious how many people in the group have been to a residential course with an elder. Just put your physical hand up because we can see. Okay, so some yes and some no. Yep, thank you. The role is really to sit there prayerfully. After I finish speaking today, I will probably sit with my eyes closed because that's what I do, and it kind of stops me getting too distracted from what's happening, and I try to hear without listening, so that I kind of know what's going on, but not getting involved or caught up. So not being a participant in the course or the program, but prayerfully accompanying. I was recently at Pendle Hill, and they use this lovely phrase of holding people in the heart of divine love, and so that's one way to describe, I think, what the elder does. The elder's available to the leaders and would usually meet once a day just to hear how things are going, to check in, and to help the course leaders get rid of anything that's sort of a bother, like a little mini clearness session, so that people are really available to Spirit. And to participants, as well as within the group, the community gathering, to be available for a limited time, probably for one-to-one conversations, usually if there's a silent day, to make some times available for people if they want some listening. Elders are not trained spiritual nurturers or counsellors, or we are just members of the community who are perhaps led, nudged, called to sit prayerfully, and so we can offer a listening ear. And there's just such a power in being heard prayerfully, and that's what we can offer, that space for somebody if they need a bit of talking and a bit of listening space, as a fellow pilgrim, really. So that's that's it. I don't know if Rowe or Helen would like to say anything else about that role, or if anyone else has questions. If that's all right,
Thank you.
Lisa.
I find it really helpful having an elder. I often have little, well, you said bothers, worries, anxieties, and the elder anchors me and helps me to let go of that, which is really, I mean, it's really important to be able to let go of that in order for the spirit to come through, in order to follow what we're being led to do.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you. Well, we have some pretty juicy questions to discussing, and yes, we're going to ask Helen and Rowe to answer some questions that will give us an idea of what to expect at the course and yeah, help us get to know them. So instead of reading out their bios or anything, the questions that we have will help you get to know them. So I'm going to ask first Helen and then Rowe. And if you have thoughts about this question, you might like to put comments in the chat as well. Actually, before I ask the question, our guidelines for participating in courses and in this session tonight are to speak from the heart, your own truth, and that could also apply if you're writing something in the chat, to listen to others without comment or judgment, share the time equitably, particularly when there's a discussion. We're not doing breakout rooms or anything tonight. It's just a 1 hour session, and there'll be a bit more listening than sharing, really, apart from in the chat. And yes, the fourth guideline, which would happen in person at a workshop or a retreat, would be to honour confidentiality. Of course, as we're recording this, that won't happen in there, but the chat is certainly not something that will be shared with anyone other than us organising this Zoom session. So first question for you, Helen, what would it look like to be a good Earth resident?
Well, circles of care, I think, caring for myself, caring for my family, the folks around me, my community, and caring for the earth, which is to say, sky, waters, land, trees. So, for example, I've been recently contacting council about some trees that have been illegally destroyed on our waterfront. I'm often involved in issues to do with trying to protect trees. Yeah, I feel I have a leading around trees. Also, treading lightly. You know, we put our pea on the garden, for example, which is we grow quite a lot of our own food. I cycle, so that's both exercise and it's also avoiding getting in a car. Yeah, lots of things like that. There's all kinds of ways that we can care. So that'll be enough from me for tonight.
Thanks, Helen. Rowe, what does it mean to you? What does it
Yeah,
look
thank you,
like to
Lisa.
be a good Earth resident?
Oh, goodness, that's a hard one. Nice to see people there this evening. I think everyone's a friend of mine with big F and small f, so it's lovely. Interesting question. To be a good Earth resident, I started to look back over time to see what had made a good Earth resident as a human, as one species of many. And I came up with the same word as Helen, and they are also the principles of permaculture, or the ethics: care of the earth and care of people. And to interpret that, I see it as being create conditions under which life can thrive, create conditions under which a seedling can thrive, create conditions under which humans can thrive, So it's greater than just having a feeling. It's not care for, it's actually care of. And when I look back through history at those very few groups of humans who actually were good earth residents, they never took more of the common goods than were able to replace themselves or which they replaced. So if you think about a forest, you never take more trees than were there in the beginning. And if you think about food on the shelves or in a supermarket, never take more than can be replaced. So it's this idea of keeping a nice balance sheet. However, with the adversity at the moment through the earth, it's very light. It is necessary now. We become restorers to a point where what is being put back and cared for and nurtured is sufficient to buffer climate. And to care for the earth, I think we have to work through our Quaker principles, peace principles in all its variety, and other things that Quakers offer us as people to do this work. And so we've got a number of things that we'd be offering in this course.
Wonderful. Now here's a big one. I don't know how we're fitting all this in an hour. Helen, you're up. What feeds your soul?
Music. Well, lots of things. Friendships, meeting for worship, Zen meditation, going for walks, spending time with trees, looking at the clouds, I meditate early in the morning and pray on a little deck that looks out on the trees at the back of our place, and I hear the birds and I see the morning star. Well, I'm very lucky. I'm so fortunate. And there's a lot else as well, but I'm practicing discerning the will of what I'm being led to do is really, really important. Nourishes me.
Wonderful. What feeds your soul, Rowe?
I think it is awe, absolute experience of awe of what other people put up with, of what other people suffer, and how they do the greater thing. I think it's people acting benevolently. I think it's awe of everything. The fact that I'm here on this earth seems to me some sort of profound miracle. And time seems to be a most extraordinary thing to deal with. So I think in terms of my soul is fed, if I start feeling a bit, everything's, doom and gloom, let's all eat worms, I start thinking, but look, you live on this earth and it is a miracle. And then I am filled with awe and smallness about what it means to have this opportunity to live and the responsibility to live the best life in service, not necessarily for myself, but how can I be of service? And that, of course, comes from understanding the privilege as well. So, yeah, even talking about it makes me feel a sort of a deep awe at this weather, at the way the water runs, at talking to Anne Felton about deep time. I mean, it just is, how amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Rowe, you've touched on our next question there, actually. So I might just get you to elaborate. It's sort of two joined together. But the question is, do you ever get down about the state of the world? And you just refer to that. Sometimes when you do get down, then you kind of come back to that awe. Is that? Yeah.
Yes. Is that all right for you if I answer, Helen?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, frequently, because it's so beautiful and because it's so magnificent. And I realize destruction and destructiveness is deeply, deeply wounding. And I feel angry and powerless and upset. That bomb last week of bombing Iran, if people saw the circles of distress and horror and upset that it caused, and I don't like the sound of a chainsaw or even a lawnmower because I know the insects that live there. I mean, the problem is if you're in awe, you get more and more tender and more compassionate for the earth and people. And I go very down to a sort of a deep seething anger You know how people react if you walk into a museum and they destroyed the Mona Lisa or something some years ago. Destruction of the earth seems to me fall in the category of destroying some sacred and valued place. So yes, I do get down, but what I've learned is to look out, not ask myself why I'm down. I know why I'm down. I'm ready to kick the wall, and I know what I'm angry about. And what I want to do is be able to manage that for good. And when I'm down, I actually have another voice. It's like the voice of reality, which says, look about you. Look at what is. Look at the people who are managing, the people doing. Just look at them and get outside the negative. Not that I'm being positive. I just go outside to objectively look at what's there. I think, Helen, how about you?
Yeah. Do you get down about the state of the world, Helen?
I used to have periods of depression about the state of the world, yes. I don't anymore. I find if I maintain my practice of meditation, I don't get depressed, which isn't to say I don't get upset at times at what's happening. Gratitude practice I find really, really helpful. And I do think it's important to let ourselves grieve when we lose. I mean, there was a stand of 17 trees at the main road leading out of the peninsula that I live on that were destroyed in order to widen the road. And I was very upset about that. Yeah. But and mourning that is really important. I guess I've learned to be okay with grief because grief is about love, and if you let yourself really experience it, then you come through. It's something that you experience and then you come through. It's all right. It's not, I mean, our society doesn't deal very well with grief. And I think I'm fortunate in that I have learned that it's fine to grieve, so I can be with people when they're in grief, and I'm very grateful for that. Yeah.
Can I add something to that, Helen? I'm with people for whom the grief's unending.
Yeah.
Right? I've been with Palestinians and I've been with Ukrainians, and their grief isn't ending. There is no grief and comfort, because tonight holds terrors and tomorrow might hold worse. So what I am absolutely in awe of those people who do the greater thing, those people who, when things are down and out and when life is hopeless, they actually step out to help others or do things or whatever. And I think it's in all of us. And I'm quite convinced there are pretty hard times coming. It doesn't look good, and we never know. They thought it was the beginning of World War III. So how then can we draw on that spirit, which it's not just one or two griefs, it's grief on grief on grief, and then come through. If you don't have means to do it, I've seen people become paralyzed. So I've seen people go through starvation, hunger, and pandemic, and then they sit by the road and let children die. But there's something else, and I'm thinking globally, so you're getting a different take on this, is that there are ways that we have of drawing on some greater thing than ourselves. And I think it's something to do with putting ourselves out there for the other, whether it's a tree or a person, at that moment, and doing something greater. It might be make a cup of tea, but it's still greater in some way. And I do bring a global approach to this all the time because that's my experience.
So Is that how you see hope being sustained, Rowe and Helen, like with those acts of something beyond the self?
Helen, do you want to talk about hope, or shall I?
Yeah,
Whatever.
well,
Yeah.
my experience is that we have some wonderful practices among Quakers for discerning what we're supposed to be doing. It's usually just the next step. It's not usually a great program. And I find that doing what I'm being led to do it does give me hope. Look, I might just refer to our little booklet of advices and queries. Every stage of our lives offers fresh opportunities. Responding to divine guidance, try to discern the right time to undertake or relinquish responsibilities without undue pride or guilt. Attend to what love requires of you. To me, that's absolutely core. Attend to what love requires of you, which may not be great busyness. And then on the other hand, it may be great busyness. It's different for each person. But doing that, I find, does give me hope.
Ellen, I think those are wonderful readings, and I think we have enough within Quakers which we'll be presenting in the course, which we could draw on. What I've been interested in is right through COVID and through the work in these very crowded, dense, abusive refugee camps, is that by providing opportunities for people to work in the natural environment, and almost eco-spirituality would suggest this, is that there is something there for people about life and connecting with life and being able to work with what seems the obvious, even though simple. So, for example, the morning we got the news that Iran had been bombed, I walked out of my room and there were 2 people shaking and 3 in tears, absolutely distraught. And I thought, we can talk about it. And I said, look, for you, you will be able to go home with wonderful, wonderful skills of non-violence in body behavior and language and help your people. Because they're saying, have to get on a plane and go home immediately. And if you're able to stay, and we'll look after your visa and fares. Now, at that moment, I gave them exercises which were, please go outside now in groups of 2 and build into the landscape some principles such as catching water or, managing a steep slope, and in twos, get ready to prepare it. By the time they'd done this and centered and focused, they were back again. What sustains hope for me is the good. I'm not talking about goodness, a cultivated goodness, but the natural good that lies in people and which can come to the fore during times of adversity and strain. And one way to it, I think, is through eco-spirituality. Gonzalo Kern calls it a mysticism of the obvious. Stay close to what's alive, and then you can start to hope. And that's a bit blurry, I know, but I can't put it into more practical terms, really.
I love that. The mysticism of the obvious. Stay close to that which is alive. Write that one down, everybody. That was
I've just written it down. It's wonderful.
Wow, that's great. Now, the workshop you're preparing for is Thriving in Our Times. So I wanted to ask you both, what does it mean to thrive? And the second question coming up at that is what defines our times? So Helen, what's your thoughts on what does it mean to thrive?
Well, being in your own skin, being comfortable in your own skin is really important. It took me decades to be comfortable in my own skin. There was a lot of learning that's about embodying presence. It's a holistic thing, you know. I mean, it's how you are in relation to everything else. I guess that's sounds airy fairy. I'm not sure, but Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. What was the second part of it? What defines our times?
What
Well,
defines
I
our
think we've,
time?
I think, I think, and I hope that we're losing the illusion that we can control very much. Um, I mean, um, there's so much uncertainty, and it's like surfing in a rough sea, really. Uh, there's skills that you can develop. And then with the skills, you can actually, sometimes there are moments when you really enjoy it. So that's enough from me for the moment.
So, Roe, what does that mean to thrive from your
Oh,
perspective?
yeah. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Helen. I think, Helen, we're going to touch similarities again, and perhaps that's not so surprising. So I guess what we'd want to look at in this course, perhaps, is of interest. I think thriving is two things. I think we're thriving when we're well fed and got enough sleep and we're nourished and nothing's worrying us and, all that. There's a different sort of thriving, a more spiritual thriving, which I think takes place when we say the chips are down. Put it in course terms. When everyone's won the lottery, we're all the same. We've all won the lottery and we're all going to give to charity and be rich and do things. But what happens when we are all deprived and suffering? I think thriving then means drawing on those sorts of reserves, which it's not a happiness, but it's a meaning that we often don't have in our lives. So thriving is being able to rewire ourselves, expand our field of care. I think we must belong at that stage, belong to wherever we are and the people on the earth. And I think there are those two things. When we're tested, how we respond, and also how we are with others, how we're functioning in those communities of belonging, with their environmental or personal. I think they're the critical tests, and they're some of the things that we could be looking at in this course. And it would be heavily eco-spirituality based, because the question I'd like to ask some of you there is, I see the reflection of God in nature and in people. That's the best image I've got of God. So I just wonder where various other people see God when I'm not listening. So I guess that thriving is sort of summoning up and being greater than we know we are.
That's great. How would you define our times, Ro?
Well, one of the worst things you can hand humans is uncertainty. All prisoners get a sentence. They're told when they're going to get out or not get out or whatever. But uncertainty, whether it's in a refugee camp or whether it's waiting on a diagnosis or all sorts of things, is a great, great threat. Our times, I think, could be times of challenge, times of avoidance, times of time to engage. But our times, I think, are threatening, actually. If I'm absolutely realistic and I look at the IPCC and I also look at the world as I've seen it for the last 30 years, seen Malaysia forests turn to rubber, I've seen the Tigris Euphrates turn to sandstorms, I've seen so much deterioration, and also a particularly immature group of people running the world at the moment. I think that it is up to us, the ordinary people. We haven't won the lottery and we're going to deal with this. And it might be difficult, but we have education, we have each other, we have Quakers, we belong somewhere, we have knowledge. And I think for these times, we're going to set aside maybe material goals and ambitions and look at being part of something with reverence.
There's a beauty and a joy in that as well. It's not all it's certainly not all negative. I mean, our lives do have meaning when we do what we're being led to do. There is great meaning in our lives, and that's quite wonderful.
Yes, and I wouldn't mistake meaning for happiness. I've spent more fraught moments than you'd ever imagine, walking up and down and not knowing what to do, and it's all too complex, and who would have thought there'd be this outcome? But at the same time, I wouldn't do anything else. So in terms of meaning, yes. If it's happiness you want, I think you probably have to go and get some laughing gas. That's if you're following your leading. Mm.
Lovely. I'm just going to relocate to a PowerPoint connected to a battery so that you can, but the next question's for you both. Can the course help us develop resilience, and how? And what can participants expect from the course?
Well,
Helen.
did you want to start, Helen?
Oh,
You know, I've had these questions, but I really somehow or other the answers are always different to what I expect. I guess I've come from a very hard background in my early life, and I'm very grateful for the practices that I've learned from the Quakers and the Buddhists and others. And I feel a delight in knowing that I can perhaps pass some of those on. I guess the environment itself, well, I don't like that word environment. The more than human world at Silver Wattle is a great teacher in itself. Just the spaciousness and the escarpment and the trees and the eagles and everything there. I I really look forward to just being there, just being out of doors there. Yeah, and also we teach each other. I think it's an opportunity for us to really listen to our own hearts quite deeply and to listen to each other as well. And one of the things, one of the sets of skills that I've been learning has been through the Alternatives to Violence project, which has Quaker roots, although it's a secular program. And one of the principles in that is that we're all teachers and we're all learners. And that's been my experience with AVP, and I love it. I mean, it fits in, it ties in beautifully with one of our core Quaker testimonies, which is to equality. So we don't know what we're going to learn, but it'll be very well worthwhile. Yeah, that's enough for this start from me. Rowe?
Well, I think people can expect some fairly structured sessions for a start. And in those, we'll revise some of the best that Quaker practice can offer us, because Friends, by their very nature of being outside society in dress and in refusal for creeds and refusal to serve in armies, have gone through hardship in the past. And that has enabled them to develop many practices, some of which we could bring back. So there's everything from Rex Ambler, more recently AVP. We've managed to incorporate all sorts of non-violent practices and behaviours, which have actually moved out into the world for many. And I think a revision of those, as well as the spiritual revision of what we are offered through life and adversity, is very, very important. As Helen said, there's a wonderful environment. And then I would hope, right, this is me. I'm now evangelizing Friends, so look out. This is me. I'm just, wait a minute and I'll get on that soapbox. But I'm very, very keen for people to build relationship with the environment, because I'm really convinced that lack of engagement and relationship to environment enables people to destroy. You think of your relationship with children, grandchildren, friends, and what you would do to care for them and defend them. We need this operating for the wonder and awe we hold for the environment. And there are some lovely things we can do. So really engaging things that we can do in that. So a mixture of traditional proven Quaker practice and a mixture of really falling in love with awe and wonder again for this world that we're so lucky to live on. I think that together they will offer a way of living in adverse times or through adversity. But there's no guarantee, nor money back, just letting you know in advance.
That's great. Thanks, Rowe.
I'm also hoping to offer some Tai Chi, some simple Tai Chi every day, which I love doing. I find really, really good for me. It's lovely.
That's great. Now, I'm wondering for people who might be still thinking about coming to the course or wanting to know how they would prepare. One of the questions that that we've got here is what would be in their survival toolkit, and maybe people that what would you put in your survival toolkit? And if you're coming to the course, that's all it will be discussed there. So is that something you would like to say, what would be in your survival toolkit, Helen?
I have to say, I don't really know. It's about time I've got this together. But I think between us, we will come up with some really useful practical ideas. I guess I've been more concerned with the spiritual underpinnings of resilience and community building than with specifics. But I know Rowe's got some brilliant ideas with specifics. Yeah, I think we'll learn a lot from each other.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, the AVP principle of everybody's a learner and everyone's a teacher is really a fantastic way to approach a course like this. And I
yeah.
hope some people put more things in the chat of their ideas. But Rowe, what sort of things
Well,
would
just
you
at the
start?
moment, these storms sweeping the south and the east coast of Australia. I was recently, as I said, I was working with refugees in Greece on Lesbos, and suddenly the fires broke out. Massive fires. So the helicopters are going, the planes are going. They've learnt all this from Australia. They sent them from Athens to the island. And I had 20 people who didn't have one idea what to do in a disaster. So look at you, you've got a backup pack, you've got a candle, you can switch to perhaps a battery. I could go up to my shed, I'm on 12 volts, standalone, plug in, continue. It is actually necessary to feel safe at the time that you can be effective. So, I said, get your passport, get your money, get your ID papers, bring something warm and a hat and cover up, and then come back to class and we'll put those things there. Check we can get out a front gate and a back gate. I just suddenly went from being we're all equal, I'm the boss now, and you do this, and then we'll go on with the lesson. But the thing was, they didn't know. And last time I was in Greece, 35 people had died on the beach on the Mediterranean because they didn't know what to do. So there is something practically about the fact that we are getting more breakdown, more disasters. Once you are prepared, if you're prepared for someone to shout at you, if you're prepared for maybe death of a family member, if you're prepared for a big cyclone, you'll go through it better with preparation. And there are various things we can do. So when it comes, you can be available for others, but certainly not be a victim of the situation. And I think that's critically important. So, in terms of preparation, I could tell you my survival toolkit in 2 minutes if I had to leave here. It's sort of there. I've got the phone, I've got the battery pack, I've got my computer, the backup, I've got the things ready to go if they said out of here in 10 minutes. Now, that is realistic and it's not dramatic because it's what's happening now on New South Wales coast as people evacuate their homes, and they woke up this morning and had breakfast and thought the day wouldn't happen. So that is part of what we do. And then, of course, as I said, and I won't say it again because I repeat, but you're available for others. So I think developing that. Also, I'm not sure about resilience, because resilience means total recovery back to where you were before. I like the word from nature. Nature adapts to changing circumstance. So if we're going to live 6 weeks in an emergency place while the fires go over, we live 6 weeks and we adapt. This is what we do. And I think that's a psychological position as well. I've heard people say I couldn't share a room or I can't sleep on the floor. All that is just adaptive. I can't take any more stress, I'm tired and I need a massage. Well, we need to adapt as nature adapts to changing conditions. And I think anyone who's been through trauma never actually comes back to being exactly the way they were before. They have adapted in some way to incorporate or even embrace or live with. But you don't go back to being as you were, which is resilience. Adaptive is what we're working on now.
Yes, that's a really, really good word. I saw a little thing recently about how Indigenous people were moving through the Blue Mountains maybe 20,000 years ago at the height of the Ice Age, when it was 8 degrees colder on average than it is now. And they could do it. You know, we don't know what we're capable of until we courageously, accept what the reality is and work with it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Ukrainian refugees learning to be permaculture teachers going back, and they're internally displaced. They're absolutely terrific. You know, they're saying, well, it mightn't be rebuilt for 50 years, but we're going back into this environment. So that adaptive capacity is really, really key to just having a life, actually a good life, even though it's not perhaps the luxury life.
Wow. Well, it's been a real blessing to really pick your brains and share your ideas this evening, Helen and Rowe. And we're getting really close to the end of our time. I actually have not seen any questions for you in the chat. So if anybody has a question, or if I've missed one, maybe Michael can chip in. I saw a nice comment from Michael about thriving happens when we can free ourselves from all the distractions that occupy our inner space. This is a discipline that takes a lifetime. But I haven't seen questions. I've been putting the questions in as I've asked them. And I think that last thing, we haven't really given anybody a chance to chip in or speak, but we might just have our go round at the end for anybody who'd like to either unmute and say a word of something that's spoken to you or touched you tonight and the things you've heard, or put it in the chat. What are you going to take away from the things that you've heard from Helen and Rowe? And yeah, if you have any questions, this is a good chance to put those into the chat, and I can ask them. Thanks, Julie. Julie appreciates this sharing of ideas, and yeah, hoping that your gathering goes really well. It'd be lovely for us also just to hear about if you think the Zoom taster is a good idea, because we haven't done it before. And I know for a lot of people, there's reasons why people can't get to the Silver Wattle events in person. So it'd be really nice to know if this has given you a satisfying taste of the course. And if anyone has more questions about the actual course, I'll put the link in I think I had it in the booking email as well, but I'll put the link to the course as well in the chat in just a moment. But if you'd like to unmute and share any comments or anything out loud, or share a word, something that's a word or a phrase from something tonight that spoke to you, you're welcome to do that now.
Just unmute. And whatever's in your mind is good.
Hello, friends. We're at Silver Wattle, and already it makes its magic happen. The outside world isn't such a bother. It's just all contained in here, and I'm very grateful. And I'm also very grateful for the legacy of all the people that have worked to make this place so beautiful and so welcoming. And I wish you well at the end of this month as you delve into really important things of the spiritual life. Go well.
It was lovely to hear all the wisdom from Rowe and Helen, and thank you very much. And best of luck for the course for everybody. I'm biased, but Silver Wattle is a beautiful setting to move into a deeply spiritual and communal experience.
I also appreciate the wisdom from Rowe and Helen. Thank you very much. What struck me tonight was when you were speaking, it seemed like there was a lovely balance between the practical and the situation that we're in at the moment and the spiritual, and connecting that with the earth. And for me, I'm really looking forward to the course. I think that's a wonderful balance, and yeah, really looking forward to supporting the course however I can. Thank you.
I really like the combination, Roe and Helen, the way you complement each other and bring your different wisdoms together to dance and engage. And I so wish I could come to the course, but unfortunately there's Helen, your partner, Steve and Joseph, we're going to be presenting the video of the cool burning and biochar and Indigenous ways that happened when you were here. So unfortunately, there's not many things that would get in front of me attending, but that is. So I hope I will get a chance to come to one of your courses another time. Thank you. But I was thrilled to have this opportunity for Taster. So thumbs up for that, Lisa. And thank you so much for doing a beautiful job of coordinating it. It was just delightful, a treasure.
I'd really like to thank you, Lisa. I mean, you were the one with the idea. It would never have occurred to me, but I think it's been really, really good. And like others have said, I mean, I really wanted to work with Rowe on this because I thought there would be this quite different but complementary approaches. And that's very Quaker, you know. We don't kind of, when we're having meeting for worship for business, for instance, we put ideas side by side. We don't tend to really get into discussion or argument. We just let them be and let them sink into people. Yeah.
I've just spent a week down in Silver Wattle, and it is a miraculous place. I met Julian there for the first time. It's a wonderful environment where you can really taste nature in a totally new, all-inclusive way. And I've really valued this meeting tonight. And Lisa, you did a wonderful job. And it's lovely to hear both Rowe and Helen bring all those ideas together. So thank you very much.
think most people who wanted to speak may have shared now. Sorry, I dropped out momentarily, but we might just have a couple of moments of silence to end with, if that's okay with everybody. And feel free to make a final comment in the chat, which we'll save, and Rowe and Helen will be able to look at that afterwards. And feel free to leave as you need to. We'll just have some closing worshipful silence.